All right, so in this video, we're going to be talking about simple, compound, complex, and compound complex sentences. Your book is going to focus primarily on compound sentences. It is important for you to be aware of both compound and complex sentences and how they operate. And in order to do that, you need to have a solid understanding of a simple sentence, which is more often than not going to be a standard declarative sentence. Okay, and I'm just going to write DS as an abbreviation so you know that that's an abbreviation that I use. So let's start by talking about a simple sentence. A simple sentence is going to have one subject, predicate, relationship. Okay. So I am going to give you an example. Tamlin ran. So I'm using the name once again from Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Thorns and Roses. So Tamlin ran is quite simple, quite straightforward, right? We have our subject and we have our predicate. There's a clear relationship between those two words. So this is a nice, simple sentence. One of the other things to be aware with a simple sentence is that you can have compounded phrases. Okay. So it's not a compounded sentence, but compounded phrases. And here are a couple of examples. I might say Tamlin and Lucian ran. Okay. So I'm using that coordinating conjunction to coordinate now two subjects with this single predicate. So even though there are two subjects, there's still kind of one relationship with that predicate. The other way that it can operate is I could say Tamlin ran and hid. This is still a simple sentence. So now we have two predicates, one subject, but that subject relationship with both of those predicates is clear. So in either of these cases, what we have are simple sentences. Now that gets a little bit different when we get down to compound sentences. And so we're going to talk about compound complex and then compound complex. So when you're dealing with a compound sentence, what you are dealing with is at least two subject, predicate, relationships with a coordinating conjunction. Okay. And let me just scroll down just a little bit so that you can see that. Okay. And so I'm going to show you what that means, again, in a fairly simple way. So Tamlin ran, but Lucian hid. Okay. So I have subject one, predicate one, subject two, predicate two. Sorry, I started spelling out predicate there. And then I have my coordinating conjunction. Okay. So that is a compound sentence. So since a compound sentence relies on coordinating conjunctions, complex sentences are going to actually rely on subordinating conjunctions. So with a complex sentence, what we're going to have is at least one independent clause okay, with a subordinating conjunction. And that subordinating conjunction is going to establish a secondary subject-predicate relationship, but one that creates dependency. So here is an example. I might say, right, Lucian hid because Tamlin ran. Okay. So once again, now I have subject one, predicate one, subject two, predicate two, but this is a subordinating conjunction. So that creates a complex sentence. So as you're looking at these, right, the difference between a compound sentence and a complex sentence is going to be the difference between a coordinating and a subordinating conjunction. Okay, so as we move into a compound complex sentence, it's going to combine these, right? So that means we're going to have at least two subject, predicate, relationships with a coordinating conjunction. Okay. And at least one independent clause with a subordinating conjunction. All right. So let me give you an example. Lucian hid because Tamlin ran. Whoop, comma. So I did the same. Okay. So here we have subject one, predicate one, a subordinating conjunction, subject two, predicate two, right? A coordinating conjunction, subject three, predicate three, right? And so that makes it a compound complex because you have both. So I want to kind of take you down and guide you through this. So we're going to look at how to diagram a sentence like this. And I revised it just a little bit for the diagram. So diagramming the form and function, we have instead, because Tamlin ran, Lucian hid, so I did the same. And just so that you're aware, right, we would have a comma here and a period here, and then another comma there. So that's what punctuation would look like. So let's go ahead then and talk about this diagram, because what we have is a compound complex sentence here. So the first step and the reason for this type of diagram, the form function tree, is to identify the form that all of these words take. So because is a subordinating conjunction, right? Tamlin is a proper noun. Ran is a verb. Lucian is a proper noun. Hid is a verb. So is a coordinating conjunction. I is a pronoun. Did is a verb. The is a definite article, right? And same is a noun. Right. So next step, we've identified all of the forms of these words. So we're going to think about whether or not there's an additional form that they have. So Tamlin is a proper noun, which means it exists as a noun phrase, right? Ran is a verb, so it exists as the verb phrase. Lucian, same situation, noun phrase, verb phrase. Coordinating conjunction, pronoun, so that's going to be its own noun phrase. Verb is going to fill part of a verb phrase, but then we also have this definite article and this noun, which is a noun phrase, and that noun phrase is going to be part of that verb phrase, right? So then we need to think next about our various sentences. So we have a noun phrase followed by a verb phrase. So we're going to have one kind of full clause here. So I did my S. And so that S is going to be comprised of the noun phrase, verb phrase, and this coordinating conjunction. We have a noun phrase and a verb phrase here. So they're also going to be another clause, right? And then we have a noun phrase and a verb phrase here, but it's a subordinating conjunction. So I'm going to do a little S for subordinating. Okay. And so each of these is going to have a line, and then all three of these together are going to go into making up our main clause, which is a compound complex sentence. Okay, so those are our forms. So now let's talk about their function. Because subordinates, so it creates dependency. Tamlin is the head word of the noun phrase and the subject. Ran is the predicate, right? If we have a subordinating conjunction here, then that means that we have a dependent clause. Okay. Lucian is the head word of the noun phrase and the subject. Hid is the predicate. So we have an independent clause. So coordinates, right? I is going to be the head word and the subject. Did is our predicate. The functions like a determiner, and same functions as a head word, but it is also the direct object, right, of the verb did. So what was done? The same. So that whole noun phrase then is our direct object. And since we have a coordinating conjunction with the subject, predicate, and direct object, we have another independent clause. Okay. So I know that this diagram looks a little bit different from the diagrams that you see in your book, but once again, I just want to remind you that we're using these form function trees as a way to help us understand and make sense of these sentences. So you're using these to help identify what you understand to be the form of the words versus what you understand to be the function of the words. So I don't care exactly how perfectly they match your book. What I care about is what you're taking away. And in order to have a compound and complex sentence, you have to have, right, two independent clauses and one dependent clause. And so that gives you a compound complex sentence.